to Awesome Earthkind, where we take the power of the air, water, earth, and sun, the four elements, and we combine that with the human element, the fifth element. That's you and me, all humanity, all of Earthkind. And together we can do amazing things. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Ethan Blumenthal, who is the co-founder and CEO of Good Solar, a native of Charlotte, North Carolina. He received his bachelor's degree from the University of Colorado before returning home to attend the University of North Carolina School of Law. And then since becoming a member of the North Carolina Bar, he's been focusing on advancing low and moderate income community access to and ownership of renewable energy development. So welcome, Ethan.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to have you. And so we're going to ask you a couple different things. One, just to get started, tell us a little something about you and something that nobody else knows.
Sure. Obviously you got the bio, so there's a good start. I guess, one of the things is, though, particularly in this current age, it's been a little difficult, but two of my favorite things to do are both skiing and scuba diving. Kind of one at the top of the world, one at the bottom.
Awesome. And did you get to go this year before COVID or
I
since
wish.
COVID? Or?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't able to swing it, but I do have a lot of friends out there still in Colorado. And we've been definitely lining up a trip for next year. Hopefully, we'll see if we're able to pull it off.
That'd be great, man. Sounds awesome. So, and when you go down, where do you go diving?
So it's a opportunity strikes sort of situation. So around the Caribbean a good bit. From North Carolina, it's not too hard to get down there. I've been very lucky to dive around Fiji some as well. And then I did a study abroad trip actually at Cape Town. So I did some diving around down there as well.
Wow. So what's the most amazing thing you've seen under the water, man, which is another world unto itself?
I think that might have to be down around Cape Town, some of the sharks that we were diving with. It's the awesome power of nature. You can really see it sometimes. And at the same time, when you're actually out and in it, it gives you a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So sharks, huh?
Yeah.
Big ones. Make you a little
Well, yeah,
scared,
we
huh?
did cage diving. We did the cages. So some 10, 11, 12 foot great whites on that one. There was another dive that we did with blue sharks that were about, I don't know, 5, 6 feet, but we were 40 kilometers off the tip, just in a dinghy, just floating out in the open ocean. So that was a little intimidating.
Oh
But
my gosh!
yeah,
Holy
it was fun
mackerel!
though.
Did the whites try to bang through the cage?
No, they're mostly docile, which again gives you the respect for the power
Ah,
if
yeah,
they choose
totally,
to
man.
use it.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
man. Yeah, no doubt. They're incredible creatures. There's, just man, millions of years of unevolution because they're pretty perfect and streamlined for their environment, right? So,
absolutely. We also saw, as you said, that some seven gill sharks as well, which are some of the oldest creatures from a evolutionary standpoint on the planet. So,
wow.
yeah, they
Yeah.
got it right early.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. That's fantastic. Awesome. So, I don't know, did you pick out a quantum quote for the day that you'd like to riff off of a little bit?
Sure. I will say it's probably a little trite, a little cliche, but going with the classic Margaret Mead quote of, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
And what,
Been there a while, but always a good one.
always a great one, man. And so, for you, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that means to you and what you're doing with Good Solar?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So part of it is knowing that, there's a lot of stuff out there and a lot of change that needs to happen in this world. And so knowing that if you really dedicate yourself to a particular area and really find a niche, and you don't always have to know what that is ahead of time, but if you look at the opportunities that are out there, find something that speaks to you, you really have the opportunity to go out and grasp and engage with that and make that change. A lot of people don't feel empowered to do any that they can really make change in their community. And a lot of times it's the little things that can spark and build momentum and really make some really positive changes at the local, state, national, level you want to, whatever level you want to look at.
So tell us what Good Energy's
Yeah.
doing, what you've been up to.
Absolutely. So, Good Solar is a 501c3, a nonprofit here in North Carolina, founded just last or fall 2018. We've been in the startup phase. We're still working on developing a couple of pilot projects. What those look like, we're looking at developing projects for other nonprofits and low and moderate income communities. We have two major ways we're looking at doing that. One is through a third-party leasing model with nonprofit organizations where Good Solar partners with them to finance the project itself and then lease the effectively lease the electricity sale or the use of that facility to the property owner, to the nonprofit. And in this way, we can help nonprofit organizations, whether that's churches, rural health centers, boys and girls clubs, YMCAs, municipalities that want to go green, anyone that struggles with that upfront access to capital. Good Solar is really founded on the recognition that solar development and renewable energy development is almost a wealthy person's and entity's game because it's all hung up on the upfront costs. And meanwhile, on the other hand, we have all these financing techniques that are getting developed in numerous different ways that can enhance access. And so it's really trying to pair the financing to get over that hurdle, the massive hurdle of initial cost in order to expand access. So the other way we want to develop is community solar. And that's where we want to build out bigger fields of renewable energy, something like 1 to 5 megawatts. And that would be tailored to the community where it's situated, where we'd have larger users like YMCAs, hospitals, municipalities, or any other government entity that would take a large share of the project, helping bring down the financing costs, while a smaller portion would be open, say 25%, to annual subscriptions. And that would allow renters to participate from the community. Good Solar is a 501c3 would subsidize those subscriptions. And that way we help get to the low and moderate income community with an explicit reservation of something like 5% of the total capacity for low and moderate income households, making sure that we really are dedicating and bringing them in to see and realize the economic benefits of this, not just the carbon and pollution benefits. And of course, there's a lot here, triple bottom line, whatever you want to say. But ultimately, it's about helping spread the economic benefits that we're going to see as these projects continue to be developed, and making sure that, one of the terms I like is democratizing the energy transition. So seeing that the benefits of these projects can be equitably shared throughout communities.
That's great, man. Yeah, in New York, my home state, it's been really interesting to see the evolution of solar, where it went from smaller systems with a 50 kW cap to we got it expanded to 2 megawatts, and then actually you could do a 5 megawatt solar farm, and it evolved from having to have the solar where you had a particular meter to where it was remote net metered, so you could have any meter, and that would then go to all your electric accounts. And now the similar thing with community solar. And initially, all the community solar subscriptions were taking long-term positions, and now you can opt into a community solar farm, and with either 30 or 90 days notice, depending upon the company, you can get out of it if you want to. And meanwhile, no cash out, no outlay, but you get an immediate 10% savings off your electric bill, which is pretty significant for a lot of people. So is that the
Yeah.
same now in North Carolina, that same sort of model come in, or is it
So
on the edge? Or?
somewhat similar. I will say it is definitely a bit different. Energy regulation is perhaps one of the most complicated subjects in the United States, which is obviously a lot of regulations on everything. But every single state does it differently. And then even within each state, they're carved up into exclusive service territories, which each have different rules and regulations. For instance, North Carolina, you have Duke Energy and a little bit of Dominion, and those are the investor-owned utilities that they are fully vertically integrated in North Carolina, unlike in New York. So they generate almost all of the electrons from the power plants, and they serve all of the homes all the way through, which is unlike New York, where generation is open to competition completely. And so there are some key fundamental differences there. There are also opportunities that are presented by that. I actually really, so the rooftop solar, the third party leasing is a fundamental part of what we're trying to do. But the community solar, as you said, there's so much going on there. I think really I look to Colorado, Minnesota, New York, and Massachusetts are the big four that I know of that are leading the way. But there is a lot of innovation in design within community solar going on right now. And so we're really hoping to take some of the lessons learned in states like New York and bring them to the energy regulatory structure of the Southeast, which there's still other states in the Midwest and in the West that also do it like this. It's not just the Southeast, but the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, all of them to some degree are vertically integrated. And so some of it is designing something that fits within the regulations that you have to play with, which I will say is where both me and my other co-founder, both being attorneys, has been very useful, being able to wade into the regulations.
Yeah, it's really interesting that almost every utility, and there's many of them in each state, and then each state has its own regulatory structure, and so the rules are very different. My perspective is that still, no matter where you are, you can usually figure out some way of doing solar and making it profitable or making you save money, you know? So it's great that you're doing this down in North Carolina, where you have a one utility that does the generation and the transmission and the distribution, which is what New York did until it became deregulated in about 1996, when the utilities were told, sell off all your generation and transmission. You're just going to be the pipes and the wires guys. You'll distribute it, Con Ed or NYSEG or Central Hudson or whoever other utility, but people will get to choose their electricity, and it'll give them more options, and it'll be such a wonderful thing. And it could be argue about that. There's a show for
Yeah.
another day about these energy service companies and how wonderful they've been or not. But it's great to
Mhm.
see you doing the stuff down in North Carolina, man.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so
absolutely. And I'll say just on a word on that, one benefit, it's like it's a two sides of the coin. But one of the secrets to the system of this is if North Carolina wants to set a policy that we are going to go renewable energy and we're willing to pay for it, Duke will build it. As long as they get their rate of return, they'll do it. They'll make a plan and it'll happen. And so there's still that degree of control. Also, sometimes mean if you can work with the utility, you can work with the regulators, and you can potentially see more change faster than sometimes relying, say, on the open market up in New York, where, for instance, you're spending a couple $100 million keeping the nuclear plants open in order to achieve the carbon goals, which, of course, carbon, it's a bargain, of course, but, it's just the regulatory structures. They're their own unique opportunities and their own unique challenges. And I think everyone's struggling to pursue something. But we'll see what can be accomplished.
yeah, well, that's part of the show too. Is that one of the things we're looking to do is to help everybody, no matter where they are, figure out in their particular locality what is possible, how to figure it out, how to identify and look at people like you in North Carolina, who are leading the way and can help guide them and help figure it out. So, if you're a residential customer in your area and you want to go solar, what's your options and what would you recommend as kind of the step by step for people?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So that's not exactly what Good Solar does,
Right.
but many of our partners, as we're coming at it from the legal perspective, regulatory perspective, the development side, which as we hope to grow, we do hope to in-house, but for now, a lot of our partners are out there working in this space. And part of what actually created Good Solar, which was a new piece of legislation called HB 589, passed in the fall of 2017. Previously, community solar and third-party leasing were not legal in North Carolina. So, as you said, opportunities and changing structures. But for residential, they also created a whole bunch of utility rebates that Duke Energy runs, and they're at the residential, the commercial, and the nonprofit level. And that has really helped really generate some increased interest in the residential market here. There's actually, that kind of goes right to one of your questions, if I'm not jumping a little too ahead. One of the internet resource, perhaps, that I was going to recommend actually speaks very much to this. And it's the Desire website done by the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center, which is run out of NC State University.
I forgot.
Yeah, it stands for the database of state incentives for renewables and efficiency. And you put in your zip code, and it will tell you all of the incentives, state, local, and federal, that you may be eligible for to consider. And
Great.
so I think that's a fantastic way to start to think about how you can make it even more affordable at the household level.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's a great resource, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things we like to ask is like if you think there's one unique tip, tool, or tactic that people need to know and probably don't,
Yeah.
besides desire.
Yeah. That's well, I think something very specific to Good Solar, and we are still starting up, and I do think it will be what allows us to be successful. It's how we're moving forward, is the organizational flexibility that we've built in for ourselves. So to be more specific on that, Good Solar, as I said, is a 501c3. That allows us to go after donations, all sort of charitable goals, grants, both public and private, from different foundations, as well as different things like credit enhancement, which can really help lower the cost of loans without having to necessarily get someone to give you the money outright. They can just help guarantee, securitize that loan, which can really help bring down costs and make things more affordable. But what really is more innovative for us is we also have a parallel LLC structure with a chain of LLCs that is very much more like traditional renewable energy finance. It's how the vast majority of solar has been financed in this country. And so that allows us to bring in tax equity investors, to impact investors, look for opportunity zones potentially. It really, venture capital, it really opens the door to a lot of other things. And so this kind of organizational flexibility that we have, I kind of like to call it, a kitchen sink approach to financing. We really have the ability to target different pools, but the front face is the 501c3. And there's a reason for that. It's because it is a nonprofit, and it all exists to push forward this mission. But the flexibility, at the end of the day, it's money makes the world go round. And so you got to get to the money if you're going to see anything like this get built and get built at scale. So hopefully, that's hopefully going to be the trick to our success as we move forward, is the ability to engage almost all audiences when it comes to this.
Fantastic. So as you look back now over the bit of your career and what you've been through, what would you say would be your worst moment when you were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, and what happened from there?
Yeah. I would say it was probably about 6 months or so into Good Solar after having found it. We were really diving deep into the economic models that we are doing to really kind of proof of concept it, be able to go to a bank and actually have numbers and feel confidence in those numbers. And as we were digging deeper and deeper into that, there was a aha moment that was a bad one. It was a realization that we actually had the fundamentals of third-party leasing backwards, where particularly under the regulations, we were under the assumption that Good Solar would get the credit for the sale of electricity, and therefore would be paying a lease payment to the property owner for the use of their land, where in reality, it actually, through net metering, goes through to the property owner, which means the property owner has to pay a lease to Good Solar. Which at the end of the day, that's not a huge difference, but and luckily we did this through our own finding and digging, and it wasn't standing in front of a crowd or talking to someone else in the industry that's like, I think you have that backwards. So we were spared those blushes, but for a new attorney and for someone really digging into this, and it was one of those like, okay, really make sure with a fine tooth comb you got to read through everything, and really I think humbling a little bit and also very useful, because something that refocuses a little bit on the details which are essential for all this.
Great. So on a other positive aha moment,
Yeah.
tell us about something that was you made you realize, and tell us a story that made that kind of happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in some ways, I'll say Good Solar as a whole kind of had that sort of moment. It grew out of, I alluded to HB 589, the bill that was passed in 2017. I graduated law school in the spring of 2018 and was analyzing that bill, including the community solar provision within it, for an advanced administrative law class. And it was through that analysis and research that, one of those classic shower thought moments of, I think a nonprofit solar developer is what's missing in this picture. There, we got a lot of pieces that are floating out there. There's, and particularly here in North Carolina, we got a very robust nonprofit um, community. We also have Charlotte, which is the second biggest financial hub in the entire country. So we have a very big bank presence and finance presence. And we actually, though we are trailing California by a very, very large margin, are the second most installed solar state in all of the United States. We have this more than New York, more than Texas, more than anyone else. Yes, though California is effectively everyone else combined, but yeah, acknowledging that. So really finding the fact that we had these pieces together, that thinking that a nonprofit could be successful in piecing them together and actually achieving greater access for LMI communities, low and moderate income communities. So that was the aha moment. And it's, take that to the friends, take that to the mentors, get good feedback there, take that to the community and the industry contacts, and next thing you know, I'm doing it. But it started from that, I think this is possible, which wasn't really in the paper I was writing. The paper was, it's a law school paper, but it was a great moment.
That's great, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get into what we call the pulsar round. Some people call it the lightning round in other places, but in this one, we ask you for short, succinct, amazing, and mind-blowing answers to these questions. So
No pressure, right?
no pressure, man. Just here we go. What's the best advice you've ever received?
It was when I was first entering law school. I was told to go out and find your mentors, make them your mentors. Don't sit back and wait for them to come to you. And I can say by the time I left law school, I actually, all of the environmental and energy law professors I could count on as mentors after following that advice. So really valuable advice for me.
So find your mentor, eh?
Yeah.
That's a great piece, man. All right, share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Sure. I mean, not that everyone has time for it, but I think keeping tabs on and just really watching for different developments and tabs on things as they play out. I have something like 10 different daily newsletters that come in from the local level at the Charlotte Observer to the national level at Washington Post, New York Times, international with The Economist, but industry specific with Utility Dive and Politico's morning energy playbook. And so just kind of keeping an eye out at the way things policy wise, as I mentioned earlier, with energy industry, things are changing every day, particularly at the regulatory perspective. And that presents us so many opportunities, and there's so many different great ideas that are coming out, particularly that are being floated right now in this such an important year and such an important time, that keeping an ear to the ground and engaging with it where possible. I mean, it doesn't just help make you sound smarter when you're talking to people and sound informed about what's going on. It helps inform your work or at least for me, it's really helped to inform my work as well. As I mentioned about community solar, where there's a lot of innovative structure and design going on, seeing that has really helped inform what I do.
It's great. Awesome. All right, so your internet resource
Yeah.
was Desire?
Sorry, jump the gun on that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great, man. No worries. It's all good. That was your internet source. That's fine, man. All right, so what book would you recommend to awesome Earthkind people and why?
Yeah. I think one that beating the North Carolina drum a little. It's called Lighting the World by Jim Rogers, former CEO of Duke Energy, who really thought about the role of a utility in a very innovative way and a very forward-thinking way. Unfortunately, he passed away a year or two back. But this book is really talking about engaging more with the outside world, not the United States, but how the benefits of electricity can be applied to actually achieve many of our own social goals, from education to clean water to carbon as well. So it's an interesting book that's well written and gives a kind of sort of different perspective than I think a lot of people may have seen.
Interesting. Fascinating. Thank you. All right, so this is one of my most fun parts. It's WTF or F. So, Weather Time Fudge, an extreme weather event that you live through and tell the tale, or Weather Time Fun, and the most fun you've ever had, and what kind of weather and what season was it then you
Yeah.
had it. So,
Well, I figured I might take the liberty of putting those together. Actually, it was both. So while I was out in Colorado, my last semester, I went out skiing, and it was during a weekday because I happened to not have class because, senior year, you take certain liberties. And it was just me and one other good friend of mine, and we drove up from Boulder to Vail, which is about a 2-hour drive on good conditions. Though you have to go past under the Continental Divide through the Eisenhower Tunnel and over Vail Pass. So some interesting weather points. As we started, it was a beautiful, clear, sunny day. As we continued to ski, a full-on blizzard came in. It was full whiteout conditions, but we didn't want to stop skiing because the conditions were better the longer you skied because it was fresh snow. So we just kept going and kept going. And then at the end of the day, it was like, okay, now we got to get back to Boulder, which was its own task. So I was driving. As I drove over Vail Pass, really, it was a complete whiteout. You could see nothing but white, except for the tall red poles. They stick up by the side of the highway for that very purpose. And then the rumble strips on either side. So if it weren't for those, I don't know if we would have made it over Vail. So that was Vail Pass. And then we got past the Continental Divide and stopped in Idaho Springs for dinner, which was very, very fortuitous because on I-70, right by Lookout Mountain, there was an over 40 car pileup because of the weather going the direction we were going in. So not that we would have been in the wreck, but we would have been stuck behind it for God knows how long. And then instead we were able to reroute through Highway 6 down to Golden, and still what was a 2-hour drive on the way up turned more into like a 4.5, 5-hour drive on the way back. But we made it, we survived it, but it was a hell of a lot of fun when we were on the mountain.
Hey, you made it, man. You live to tell the tale. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of fun. So, and so glad you got through it, man. That's great. So,
Yeah, it was good.
awesome. All right. So, what's one thing that's got you most energized about today?
I think really it's the potential looking forward. I'm really, really excited about a lot of the ideas that are being put out there, particularly at the national level. I look to, as we're recording this, timing wise, I look to Vice President Biden's new clean energy plan here, where we're talking the Building Back Better plan or whatever they call it, with $2 trillion of clean energy investment. And they've spoken that a very significant portion of that will be targeted towards underserved and minority communities, which is the exact work that Good Solar is looking to do. And, money is everything here, particularly in clean energy, where you can take public financing and very rapidly pair that with private financing and really see a huge deployment of capital, outsized deployment of capital from what the government is actually needing to put forward. Like personally, I'm really hoping to see something like a zero interest loan pool for low and moderate income communities, something like out of a green bank or something, where these sorts of communities, like the community solar projects that we want to build, could be financed with these zero interest loans and paid back over 5 to 10 years. And when you pay that back at that zero interest loan, you're not just putting out the first project, you're putting out the second and the third project with that same pool of money. And at the end of the day, all it costs the government is administration costs, because it's a pool that you're expecting to be paid back. So I think just the ideas that are floating out there, we're seeing a lot of great movement. A lot of people are thinking in big concepts here. They're looking at pairing social and environmental initiatives together, which is exactly the work that we're doing. So it's hard not to be excited.
That's great, man. So, all right. So, what would you say? You're talking to people all the time, but to the average person on the street, what would you say in terms of guidance? And then also let us know how we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, of course. I would say, and some of this is of experience through Good Solar and experience as an attorney working in environmental law, is the value of participation cannot be underestimated. It really cannot. And there's almost always a way to have your voice heard. If there's a big decision coming up in your community, reach out to your city council, to your county commission, to your local leaders, to your state legislators, your governor, or there's a million ways to submit public comment. Look for those, whether that's standing in front of your city council. That's one way, but if there's so many different written ways which can take pressure off, where people can register their thoughts, and it really can move the needle a lot when it comes to convincing legislators and decision makers on what's possible and what the community actually wants moving forward. Because at the end of the day, it's shocking how few people really do participate, making it all the more valuable for those who do. So I would say that, and then and with that is also, you can find an organization that is doing work or supporting work that you're agreeing with, more advocacy oriented ones or more work oriented ones like Good Solar. But whichever it is, and support that work itself. And that can be very community rooted, which I think looking local is what I think we all can do nowadays to find some success. And so, yeah, moving forward, best way to connect is probably my email, which is Ethan, ETHAN, at goodsolar.usa.org. That's simple. And check us out at goodsolar.usa.org itself. Thanks.
That's great, man. Thank you so much. So you guys are close to your first project now, or whereabouts are you with that?
Yeah, so we actually just went through a program called the Joules Accelerator Program here in Charlotte, spelled like the unit of energy, joules. And it's looking to really see a bunch of clean tech startups invest in different projects, hopefully through the Carolinas. And that's, startups is a big amorphous word. Part of our cohort was an international organization that had like 3 million in sales, but is looking to come to the United States for the first time. Whereas then you have Good Solar and actually another North Carolina startup that are both, we're looking for the pilot projects after having established a certain amount of proof of concept out in the industry and momentum. And so we are actually at a stage where I can talk about, there's an organization outside of Laurinburg, North Carolina called Growing Change, which has taken a defunct prison facility and built a organic farm, hiring young people that are on the edge of the community or of the criminal justice system, providing them with job skills, business skills, as well as therapy on the educational side of it as well. And so they have extra land there, and we are hopefully moving forward and talking about putting in a community solar facility there that could serve not just that nonprofit, but other nonprofits in the communities around Laurinburg, which is for those who, many of you who I probably don't know, is right about the middle of North Carolina, right above the state line with South Carolina. So quite rural. So there's, we think we're moving forward on that. There's a number of other really very great conversations that we've had that I don't, unfortunately, are not at a stage where we can talk publicly about them. But I do think we're getting close to that pilot project being in the ground, really moving forward with that. So we're excited about the potential and excited about the future.
Sounds great, man. And so, you're a couple years out of law school, and for those young men and women who are coming out of college, wondering the next step, you got any particular sort of words of wisdom and advice for them?
Um, sure. I mean, I can, for whatever it's worth, the thing as I remember that stage in my life, the advice can be coming at you whether you want it or not. So for what that's worth, or for what it's worth, I found law school to be very effective. I did a social science track, which for me and my goals of what I wanted to accomplish, it would have been very difficult for me to really get traction out there in the real world and get the job that I wanted without getting some form of higher degree, higher education. And for me, a law school degree is, the law is what underpins everything we do in our society. It's the way insurance works. It's the way the finance industry works. It's the way you buy a home. It's conflict resolution. It's effectively everything. So if you want to change anything, understanding the law and understanding how it works is a very critical first step. And that's the perspective that I came to it with. And I took, part of doing good solar, I went through the stage of who goes to law school and then founds a nonprofit, not a traditional path. And that's, I think some of it is because I looked at it as a very utilizable degree. I went to a public university, a very good school, but that definitely helped make it more affordable and bringing down costs. So one piece of advice I definitely would have in that is you want to be clear-eyed about what you're going into it for. It's a very expensive endeavor going, pursuing more education in this way. And that it can be extremely useful and extremely valuable, but you want to have a clear idea of what you're shooting for, I think, before you want to make that investment. But it is always worth investing in yourself.
So, did you know when you were growing up that you wanted to be an environmental lawyer, or what was sort of the progression for you?
Not lawyer. I will say I knew from a very young age. I grew up though in Charlotte, in the North Carolina mountains a lot. My family has run a nonprofit conference center called Wild Acres Retreat up there. My father's been director for over 45 years, and so being able to interact in that community, it's right around Pisgah National Forest surrounds most of it. The Blue Ridge Parkway goes right by it. There's a lot of state parks, national parks that are all up there. And so that really gave me a sense of, feeling with the natural world and the value of that. And it became very rapidly clear to me that climate change and environmental issues would be the defining issue of our times. And so if you want to make real change, if you really want to go after something, the environment would be the place to do it. Law school came, I would say, about halfway through undergraduate, when it became apparent to me that for my objectives, a master's degree probably would not give me what I want or get me where I wanted to go. And the legal angle, as opposed to say an MBA and the business angle, I thought that, and it has found to be perhaps better. Though now that I'm running my own nonprofit, I will say I could use some of those MBA skills sometimes. So yeah, valuable
Yeah.
process.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's always an interesting ride, right? So,
Yeah, that's
so
for sure.
anything else you want to say, man?
I mean, it's been great to be here with you. I appreciate it, and as we look forward, these are incredible times we live in, and sometimes with the greatest crises come the greatest opportunities. It's hard not to see how in the next 6 months, we couldn't really accomplish a lot as a country, as a state, in North Carolina, hopefully globally, and really put ourselves back on a track to really define what clean energy can be and clean energy development in this country.
Yeah, it's always interesting. They say change takes a tremendously long time, much longer than you expect, and then when it happens faster than you ever thought possible. So
Yeah.
let's hope that with all of us waking up to the realities of life in this age and this huge wake-up call we've just gotten, that life is short and precious, and we're all so interconnected, that this is what we needed to have to make this transition, and we can do what we are capable of, which is incredible, awesome feats of amazing, amazing abilities. So thank you so much for being on here. Looking forward to staying in touch with you, and we'll let you know when this is ready, when it's coming out.